On today's show, the Cavs made a statement with a win over the Boston Celtics on Sunday night at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Donovan Mitchell had a great fourth quarter. Darius Garland stepped up on defense, and this was the best response the Cavs could have had to two losses in Atlanta. We'll talk about all that and so much more in today's Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like The Inside Shot, 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure they're subscribed as well. If you're watching this video on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show, of course, is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. The Cleveland Cavaliers on Sunday night beat the Boston Celtics 115-111. It was a come-from-behind win. It was a win that the Cavs got because Donovan Mitchell was awesome in the fourth quarter. There are a lot of things to point to as to why this Cavs team won this game, but none of them were more important. None of them were bigger than Donovan Mitchell, what he did in the fourth quarter. He had, I thought, what was a rather pedestrian first three quarters. His first half really wasn't good. He had a couple of shots in the third quarter, started to, I don't want to say break out of a slump, but he's not shot the ball well over his previous 5 games going into Sunday night. The last 5 games that he played in, which all came off with that rest game against Charlotte that he missed, he was shooting right around 30% from 3, and he just hadn't looked like himself. And then on Sunday night, that fourth quarter was one of the best quarters he's played in his time as a member of the Cavs. He had 20 points in the fourth quarter, was perfect on offense. He made all 6 shots that he took, 4 of which were three-pointers. He made 4 free throws down the stretch of this game. And we can talk about how this game was closed out a little bit later on too. But Donovan Mitchell could not have been better in the fourth quarter against Boston. He was the biggest reason why they won this game. And the thing that really stands out to me is he does such a good job of sort of having his finger on the pulse to know when these moments are. Like he has a great balance of knowing when it's time to take a step back and maybe let somebody else close out the game, right? Like we've talked about with Darius Garland a number of times this year, where Darius has stepped up in fourth quarters and been awesome and been able to take the Cavs home. You know, that game against New York comes to mind. The game against Milwaukee where he outdueled Damian Lillard, those moments come to mind where Darius Garland was able to step up and do that. But I think what Donovan does, and this isn't something that can show up in a box score, this is something that if you watch the Cavs all the time, you know, he has a great sense of knowing when it's time for him to step up, when it's time for him to let someone else step up. Sunday night was absolutely the time for him to step up, and he did it, and he was awesome. And that is something that I don't want to say it's encouraging because while perfection is not expected, right? Like we don't expect Donovan Mitchell to go a perfect 6 for 6 from the field in the fourth quarter. It's part of a 12-point comeback, but we expect him to find a way to win the game for the Cavs. And that's exactly what he did. He was awesome offensively. Some of the three-pointers that he hit, like he hit one where he hit Drew Holiday, who is an awesome defender, as we all know, hit Drew Holiday with a crossover that I don't know that I've ever seen Drew Holiday lose as much ground on an offensive player on a crossover than what he did when Donovan Mitchell shook him in that fourth quarter, shook him and then buried a 3 on the left wing. And he had it going on. And it was something that I thought was important because the Cavs needed this win. Coming off of 2 games against Atlanta, one in Cleveland, one in Atlanta, where the Cavs looked pretty bad. I know Kenny Atkinson called Wednesday's game a stinker. Friday's game, I don't think he called a stinker, but offensively, they looked pretty terrible, Donovan Mitchell included, where he just had, I think he was 2 of 10 from 3 in that game. They needed a performance like this one. I thought that the best thing about this game for the Cavs is that they beat Boston, and it's a statement win because they needed another statement win like this. But the second best thing for the Cavs about this is that it was the appropriate response to what happened against the Hawks. Where is Atlanta a bad team? No, I don't think they're bad, but I also don't think they're a good team either. And I'm not trying to throw shade at the Atlanta Hawks here, but I just think they're a pretty average basketball team. They're a team that if the Cavs want to be considered contenders, which I certainly believe they are, if the Cavs want to be considered in that light, they need to take care of business against teams like Atlanta. Now, are you going to have games like they had Wednesday night where it's just a complete clunker? Yeah, that's going to happen in the NBA. I don't think that's anything to feel that bad about. But how you follow that up, I thought they played better against Atlanta on Friday, but they followed it up with another loss. And this team, Donovan Mitchell particularly, putting his foot down and saying, we're not losing 3 in a row. Doesn't matter who comes into town. We're going to find a way to win. And that's exactly what he did on Sunday night. It was super impressive. Like I said, Cavs trailed by as many as 14 points in the second half of this game. It was one that I think very easily could have gotten out of hand. This is a moment that I think we learned a lot about the Cavs, because in that third quarter, and they were outscored 35-21 in the third quarter. It was a bad quarter on both ends of the floor. After what was really good defense in the first half, they held Boston to 49 points in the first half. It was a really strong defensive performance. And this game as a whole was a really strong defensive performance. It's just that third quarter was really, really bad. And I will talk about the defense a little bit more. One player in specific coming up in just a second. But the way they responded to that was what I thought was the most impressive thing that they did. Responding from back-to-back losses, responding from falling down 14 points in the third quarter where they could have folded. Like Jayson Tatum went off in the third quarter. He was awesome. And that could have been a moment where the Cavs said, you know what? It's just not our night again. Because they didn't shoot the ball well in the first half. It was not a first half that anyone's going to remember for the offensive performance. Now, they had a lead at halftime. They were up by 2. They're up 51-49, but they only shot 40% from the floor in the first half. They didn't have a good offensive performance. Like I said, they played good defense, but then you got the feeling when Boston started hitting shots in the third quarter, which of course they were going to hit shots at some point in this game. They're too good not to. And they were, I think, over 50% from 3. I think they hit 7 threes in that third quarter. The Cavs could have folded. They could have said, it's not our night again. We have to regroup and we have to find a way to get a win on Tuesday. But like I said, Donovan Mitchell senses those moments. He knows when it's time to say, I can't let this happen. And I thought that's what that entire fourth quarter was. Now, not every time he does that is he going to be perfect. Not every time he does that are the Cavs going to win. There are going to be some nights where he tries to do that and it doesn't work out, because that's the game of basketball. Some nights the shots don't go in. Sunday night was one of the nights where he looked incredible. He looked like an all-NBA player. He looked like somebody capable of leading a team to a championship. That's what he looked like in that fourth quarter. And this was a game that, for the first 3 quarters, being inside Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, it felt like just a regular season game. Nothing about that fourth quarter felt like it was just a regular season game on December 1st. Like, that felt like the Cavs wanted it as if it was a playoff game. And I thought the way Boston handled it too, like they wanted to win that game. Now, I understand Boston was without a couple of key players. I'm not going to try and minimize that. Jaylen Brown, Derek White didn't play. That's a big deal for Boston. But it's also, to be fair, a big deal that Dean Wade and Max Strus didn't play. I'm not trying to say that those two things are equal. I'm not trying to say that. But if you bring up one, you have to bring up the other two. But this, to me, felt like it was a playoff game. And I thought the way the Cavs handled it, and I think that this is, I don't know that I'm ready to say Wednesday was true adversity, because it was a clunker and those things happen. But losing 2 in a row was the first test of adversity for the Cavs. Losing a game in Boston by 3, I don't think that's real adversity. Like, that's a tough loss, but that happens. That's not really an adverse situation. Losing 2 in a row and having the defending champs come into town, okay, you can talk me into adversity. That is something where your back is a little bit against the wall. And Evan Mobley said last Tuesday or 10 days ago, however long ago the Cavs were in Boston, that he didn't want people to believe that this was a fluke, that they are real championship contenders. And since then, they had lost to Boston And then, yeah, they beat a severely undermanned New Orleans team. They beat a Toronto Raptors team that's not very good. And then they go out and they lose 2 games to an average at best Hawks team. They didn't do anything. I mean, the competitiveness they showed in Boston, sure. But since that Boston game, I don't know that they did anything to tell people anything other than I don't know that they proved it wasn't a fluke. What they did on Sunday against Boston, that was a step in that direction. And like I said, I get some guys were out for the Celtics, but this is a step that the Cavs needed to take. This is a step in their process that they needed to take. And I do think that this win that they had, particularly in the fashion they got it, because of how Donovan Mitchell took over down the stretch, I think this win is going to be something that gets the Cavs some respect. Not necessarily across the league, but I think from national media. I think that we will start to see the Cavs maybe talked about in a different light. Like, these were 2 of the 3 best teams in basketball, and they played a great game and the Cavs won. And I think if you're a Cavs fan, that, along with Donovan Mitchell being as good as he was down the stretch and knowing how to grasp that moment and knowing how, more importantly, to sense that moment, I think you should feel really good about this one. I think you should also feel really good about the way Darius Garland played defense. Yeah, Darius Garland playing defense. We'll talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. So right now, it's the holiday season. Of course it is. December is a time, I think, for most of us to be happy about the season. Maybe the snow is falling. And if you're Northeast Ohio, you've been bombarded with snow over the past few days. Maybe that's not the thing to be happy about. Or maybe it is one of the things that you feel happy about is you can be cozy at home during the month of December. How do you stay cozy in the winter months? It might be different than me. I'm actually out and about quite a bit this month because of how frequently the Cavs are home. For some, you might want to wrap up in a blanket, have a mug of hot chocolate. That sounds really nice. Watching a movie, spending time with family, but also one of the best ways to bring yourself some comfort this month, and that comfort that can never go away, is therapy. Therapy is something that absolutely can do that. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try because it's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just go online, fill out a brief questionnaire, very brief, and you get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. I think that's a really important thing. Being able to find a therapist that is a good match for you and not having to worry about, oh man, if this doesn't work, I'm going to have to pay more. No, you can switch at any time for no additional charge. I think that's one of the best things BetterHelp does. So find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA, LOCKEDONNBA, and you can get 10% off your first month. Again, go to BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said at the top of the show, you can find it anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure they're subscribed too. And if you're watching me on YouTube right now, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I want to talk about Darius Garland. I want to talk about Darius Garland playing defense. I will say, before I dive into this, I thought that Garland played pretty well on the offensive end of the floor in the first half. I thought he was a big reason why the Cavs were not just in the game, but leading the game at halftime. I thought he was really good in the first half. The second half, I don't necessarily think that he was tasked with being as important to the Cavs' hopes offensively. He had 15 of his total points in the first half, and he finished the night only scoring 22, and a few of those came on free throws down the stretch. So he wasn't necessarily a big part of what the Cavs did offensively in the second half. But defensively, he was really important. So Darius Garland is oftentimes seen as the weak link for the Cavs defensively. When they run out lineups with Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley and Isaac Okoro or Karis LeVert, those guys are all looked at both internally by the Cavs and externally by opponents as plus defenders, right? Like I don't have to sit here and tell you Evan Mobley is good at defense. Everyone that watches basketball is aware of that. So then you get to the backcourt, and Darius and Donovan are not exactly what you would call big guards in the NBA, right? So teams are going to target those guys. More specifically, as we saw the Boston Celtics do over and over and over and over again, they're going to target Darius Garland. We've seen this a number of times. We saw this in the playoffs last year. Teams will look to hunt Darius Garland on get him to switch onto a better offensive player. And what the Cavs have done at times is, okay, well, if you're going to do that, we're going to put Darius Garland on one of the weakest offensive options so that if Darius is going to be involved in the action, that means that, for instance, Boston is not going to be able to have its two best players running a pick and roll and have Darius Garland involved in it. Darius is going to be defending a lesser offensive player. In some ways, that is how you can hide a weaker defender. On Sunday night, the Cavs, for the most part, there were times where they started in the fourth quarter, they trapped Jayson Tatum a little bit, like in the last 3 minutes or so. And that strategy worked. Like, it got them missed shots, but once they were in scramble mode, they really struggled. I thought Boston did a good job there of recognizing, okay, it's sort of 4-on-3. We're going to attack the offensive glass here. They did a good job. Like, there was a possession where they trapped Jayson Tatum at the top, and then Boston missed a shot, got an offensive rebound, missed another shot, drew a foul. That was the biggest problem with the trap that they had on Tatum. But they let Darius Garland switch on to Jayson Tatum quite a bit. Tatum took 27 shots in this game. I don't have the exact numbers, and I've not gone back and watched all of the shots. I've gone back and watched the fourth quarter. But it felt like half of Jayson Tatum's shots on Sunday night were with Darius Garland as his primary defender. That is a lot. That's not ideal. But I thought Darius Garland was up for this test. I thought he played incredibly physical, both on Tatum and when he would get switched on to Kristaps Porzingis, which is an even worse matchup, just considering how, Kristaps Porzingis has more than a foot of height on Darius Garland. Like, Kristaps is a legit 7'3". Darius is 6'1". So that is an even bigger mismatch, but we don't need to necessarily talk about that. But the Cavs let Darius go out there and be on an island against Jayson Tatum when it mattered most. Now, Tatum got his, obviously, as he's going to do as a great scorer, as most great scorers in the NBA are able to do, sort of no matter who defends them. But down the stretch of this game, Boston wanted the ball in Jayson Tatum's hands, and they wanted Darius Garland defending Jayson Tatum. And in the last couple of minutes, Tatum was 0 for 2 against Garland. Garland played great defense. He was physical at the point of attack. He forced Tatum to take some tough shots. Like, Boston as a team wants to shoot a lot of three-pointers, and they shot 49 of them on Sunday. So they accomplished that goal. They were right around their season average, which I believe I didn't check going into this game, but it's right around 50, 51. They take a ton of threes. When Tatum sees somebody like Garland, and this was very true on Sunday, sees it as a mismatch, which it is. It's a size mismatch. It's a skill level mismatch in terms of who Tatum is as an offensive player versus Garland as a defensive player. But the size here, I think, is the most important aspect of it, because with that size, the Cavs, this was actually the inverse. If think about the first Boston game and how the guys on the Cavs talked about how they got out of what they wanted to do offensively, particularly in that first quarter 10 days ago, because they started mismatch hunting a little bit, where Boston was switching everything and they wanted to get weaker defenders switched onto the guys on the perimeter and then go to work. That's what Boston did here. But instead of taking threes the way the Celtics have built their offense, the Cavs switching Darius Garland actually got Jayson Tatum to come inside the three-point arc, where he was taking a ton of twos. He was taking some tough mid-range shots. And listen, credit to him. He made a handful of them. He's a really good basketball player, right? But that got the Celtics out of their offensive game. And I think that's a big reason why the Cavs were able to hold Boston to 27 points in the fourth quarter. And even if you dig a little bit deeper into that, how many of those points came on free throws? Because Kenny Atkinson employed I'm going to foul while up 3 points strategy down the stretch. Like the final 35 seconds of that game took 17 minutes of real time because of timeouts and because of fouls and foul shots. So that number is even a little bit skewed. Like the Cavs scored 43 points in the fourth quarter. It was, probably closer to like 37 before you start talking about free throws. So Boston was probably closer to 20, 21 before you start talking about free throws. The way Darius Garland defended had a direct impact on that because Garland forced Tatum to come inside the 3-point arc, and the Boston Celtics were less efficient because of it. This was the best game the Cavs have played defensively against a good team in a while. And I think Darius Garland deserves a lot of credit for that. That was something I was very impressed with. And it's something that Kenny Atkinson said after the game, because I did ask him about this. He said after the game, I'm not going to hide Darius Garland. Like, we're not going to try and hide him. He's going to get picked on. But for the Cavs to be what they want to be, Darius Garland needs to become a good defender. He's capable of it. He has the tools. He's strong. He's quick. He's not down 20 pounds the way he was last year. It's very possible for them. And I thought that Sunday night for Garland was a big step in the right direction as far as that goes. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was a really, really big step in the right direction. I want to talk about one play in specific that Isaac Okoro made. Plus, we'll look ahead very briefly to Tuesday against the Wizards. That's next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. It's time to tackle NFL action with America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The Cleveland Browns play football tonight. They're in Denver. Don't know how it's going to go. Last Thursday night went pretty well. I was stunned by that. They beat Pittsburgh in a snow game. Can they continue it tonight in Denver? I'm not so sure. Maybe you feel a little bit differently than I do. But the Browns, of course, as one would imagine, go into that game as underdogs. Right now, as I'm recording this, they're 5.5-point underdogs in Denver against the Broncos. Maybe you think the Browns are going to cover that. Maybe you think Bo Nix is for real. Sean Payton's got him rolling. I don't know. I don't know what you think. I don't have a great feel for this, but if you do, FanDuel is the place to go. It's got everything: NFL, NBA, NHL, college football, whatever you want. FanDuel is the place for you to go. Maybe you think that the Cavs are going to be the team that wins the Eastern Conference. They're plus 500 right now, trailing only New York and Boston. Might be a good bet. Might not be a good bet. Might be a good bet. I mean, I know what is a good bet is the Cavs to win the Central Division. They're minus 1,000 favorites. There's no value there, but they're going to win that if you want to just make maybe a little bit right there. But head on over to FanDuel right now, and if you're a new customer, you can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. So like I said, head on over to FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Go to FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to join today. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drops a 5-star rating. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button for me. Make sure you like this video and subscribe as well. I would very, very much appreciate it. So the one play in specific that I want to talk about, because Boston, one of the final possessions of the game, finally was able to get the ball out of Donovan Mitchell's hands. Something they could not do the entire time he was in. They got the ball out of Donovan Mitchell's hands, and it ended up in Isaac Okoro's hands on the short roll. And I think that this play speaks so much to the growth of Isaac Okoro, where instead of going up with the shot or instead of panicking, what he did was he threw a great pass to Evan Mobley, who was coming in from the dunker spot on the left side. And that dunk by Evan Mobley, I thought was the play, probably the play that won that game. It was just so perfectly executed. It's not going to be a play that shows up on highlights, but just from a basketball standpoint, that could not have been done better than the way Isaac Okoro executed that. And a number of guys singled him out, like Donovan Mitchell spoke about it. Kenny Atkinson spoke about it. So I just wanted to say that was one of the most impressive plays of the night coming from Isaac Okoro. Again, like I said earlier, I thought that this was an awesome response by the Cavs. They needed to have a game like this. I also thought, and Kenny Atkinson touched upon this both before and after the game, that he wanted to see them win a game where they were not shooting the basketball well against a good team. And as I mentioned earlier, that first half was not good offense. They played good defense, but it was not good offense. The third quarter, not good offense at all. The fourth quarter, Donovan Mitchell stepped up. But this team staying in this game, this team finding a way to win, I think makes a really, really big statement. I think it's a statement they needed to make after two bad losses against the Atlanta Hawks. Now, this isn't some, oh, I think the Cavs are going to go out and beat the Celtics in the playoffs type of win. But it's a win, I think, that lets Boston and everyone else know, okay, yeah, this Cavs team is for real. Boston didn't have everybody. Cleveland didn't have everybody. But I will say, in different ways, two of the most impressive games I've seen the Cavs play this year have been against the Celtics. And I think that's a really good sign. Are the Cavs going to be able to beat Boston in a 7-game series in late May? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But what we've learned, at least what I've learned, what I feel very confident in saying, I think Sunday night really speaks to this. They're not going to back down. They're not going to be a team that folds, because they could have folded down by 14 in the third quarter on Sunday. Instead, they fought back. Instead, they found a way to win. It's not always going to happen, but this is a team that's not going to fold. That is something that I think we knew going into tonight, but I thought Sunday night really forced that point home. So if you're a Cavs fan, you should be thrilled with this victory. Now, up next, Cavs have the Washington Wizards. It's an NBA Cup game. That doesn't matter because both teams have been eliminated from the NBA Cup. I believe it's still going to be played on that hideous red floor, so that'll be an eyesore for me to watch and for you to watch on TV. But this is a game that if the Cavs are as good of a team as we believe them to be, sitting here at 18-3, they should take care of business. The Washington Wizards are a very unserious basketball team. We've already seen the Cavs play the Wizards once. They should take care of business in this game. And if they do, it's another step in the right direction as being a true contender. I am very much looking forward to their game on Thursday against Denver. I think that'll be a really good test. I'm very excited for that one. Denver's been playing some solid basketball. Obviously, Nikola Jokic is phenomenal, but I can't wait to see the Cavs look like on Thursday night. That's the game I'm most excited for this week. But I do want to say again, thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review as well. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs. And if you're looking for more Cavs written content, check out my Substack, The Inside Shot. I'm running a Cyber Weekend sale going through tomorrow night. So check that out if you're looking for more Cavs written content. A link is in the episode description, both here on YouTube and on your podcast platforms. But I will be back tomorrow talking more Cavaliers basketball with you right here on Locked On Cavs.